Hey, what's up guys, it's Talon. So these are my favorite type of videos to make because I like showing you guys comebacks and how to come back. Like, this is like the most satisfying way to play. And so you guys kind of remember, you know, the video I made recently about the invade strategy. Well, I try to force it really hard here, and you see how hard I get poked out because I try to force it way harder than I should, so I would lose more HP than I should. So basically, you know, when you get forced out like this, you shouldn't really do that. I lose half my health, and then I go and get first blooded by the Xin Zhao, as we're about to see here, from some dumb greed. And so the game goes very poor to start, obviously, with me literally just killing myself. Obviously, very dumb play by me, very bad. And instant first blood to the Xin Zhao, looking very, very bad. And we're kind of going to be talking a lot about comebacks, but initially we'll go through the early game, and you guys will see just how poor the game starts. And also, we're playing against Jackie and Wenga. And if you don't know Jackie, he's the Vayne. He's a ADC main. He streams on Twitch as well. His Twitch is like J3CKI if you want to find a really, really good ADC to watch. But he's been rank 1 on Wild Rift more times than I could probably count. And he's an insanely good player, and the player Wenga that he's playing with is his support, who he duos with all the time, who's a very good sovereign support as well. So, like, very good bot lane, and then we screw up the early game really, really bad, and then everything like that. Our jungler is a pretty solid player as a challenger, and I'm duo with my Fiora, so we have some good players on our team as well, but you're going to see, right, the early game just ends up really going quite poor for us at this point. So the Vayne rotates early because our teammates have lost prio into the dual lane, so then they end up rotating and contesting us when we end up trying to roam. And then it's just kind of a mess from here, like a very bad kind of early game start. Wukong's 1 HP. I'm pretty low, but I'm trying to see if I can maybe stun someone. We end up getting the stun onto Janna, but she's relatively tanky here at this point, and I don't really have the damage to kill her. And then I just go and commit and decide I'm going to try to kill her because what else can I really do? And then we dash over the wall, but she's on the other side, so I'm not able to kill her. And pretty much everything you could think of goes wrong, and we're into a comp that scales very well. I would say they probably overall outscale us. Our scaling is pretty good as well, but they're really good early game. And then here we're just waiting for our mana boots because we do have the mana boots. And so the game, yeah, just not going well, not looking good at all. And now we're going to kind of start talking about what to do when an early game goes really bad. Like, I think we're already down 2k. That gold lead's going to continue to blossom for our opponents in the early game. But when you are kind of having a really bad start of the game and you're looking to come back, one of the most important things to understand is, one, not to force fights at the start of the game. So the reason that forcing fights after you have a bad, like, early start, you know, where you're very behind and everything, is not a good idea is because at that time you're going to be down a lot more gold than if you were to just scale up a bit. So what I mean by that is, like, say you're down 500 gold in the early game because they got a first blood or whatever. Being down 500 gold early on in the game is way more impactful than being down 500 later, because 500 gold when you only have 3,000 gold total is what, like 17% of your overall gold. Whereas having it when, say, you have 9,000 gold, then that's only like, what, 5-6% of your entire gold. So that amount of gold, you know, is less valuable, right? So essentially, each individual, like, point of gold becomes less value the longer you go in the game. And so that's kind of a general thing to keep in mind. And later on in the game, item spikes become more important, where it's more like, okay, did I hit my full item or not? Whereas earlier on in the game, it's more like, did I you know, hit my component or whatever. And so again, I make another dumb mistake here, just dashing forward when I really shouldn't. I get caught, I lose my ult, my flash. And so again, very bad early game, very bad gameplay from me, and the teammates are not doing well. So we're looking awful. And again, first thing, don't force too many fights. I don't even follow that, right? You just saw me force a dumb fight there, but like, that's a general thing, right, that you're going to be looking for initially in comebacks. Another thing is playing around numbers advantages. So that's going to mean if you know the enemy jungle is on one side of the map, you try to rotate and help your team on the other side of the map. If you know your jungler's on a certain side of the map, you try to help your jungler make a play. Always try to, like, make these kind of, you know, plays that will give you the numbers advantages. These type of thing. And then overall, they kind of overforce here, so our Wukong gets a nice little kill. So at least, you know, they int a little bit, but they're still up 3,000 gold with Vayne, you know, with Mordekaiser, with Victor. All of these champions, even, like, I mean, Xin Zhao is, like, not bad scaling, not insane scaling. But the Vayne plus Janna, and then the Mordekaiser plus Victor. I mean, it's just, like, you know, very hard early game, right? If this early game goes this bad, the later parts of the game are going to be really hard. And so now our goal here is to ideally play around an objective that's on the other side of the map compared to where the enemy try to choose. And so here I'm looking for the Herald, but I'm really just like, wherever the enemy go, I don't really want to be there if we don't have to. And so I believe they end up going towards the dragon. We obviously see the Xin Zhao here, and then it's like, okay, where does Xin Zhao go? He ends up coming Herald, it actually looks like. So it looks like we do end up trying to contest, but wouldn't be ideal as well. So again, I want to point out, I don't always make the correct decisions. You can tell I'm kind of telling you guys what I would be doing or what I should be doing, but sometimes I don't follow that, right? And so at least we were able to get the first move, so we're able to kind of fight okay. But then you see the Vayne rotating. So we do get the nice little kill on Xin Zhao there. But then Vayne's rotating, Janna's rotating, and our Varus is not here. So we're in a really disadvantageous part, our spot at this point with the fight. And then again, it kind of starts going pretty bad. And we end up dying. Wukong dies. Pretty much everyone dies. The enemy get the objective. And what at this point, they're up like, definitely over 3K. Yeah, they're up 4K, plus they're about to get Herald, and they're probably going to get Dragon afterwards. And so, again, a lot of mistakes from me, a lot of mistakes from the team, and the game just goes very poor. So what I should have done in this game, first thing, obviously not overforce the invade when I got poked out early on in the lane. Second thing, definitely could have not tried to hard contest an objective that the enemy jungle went to when they're ahead. Shouldn't have really fought there, and then also shouldn't have forced some of those earlier fights on the Victor as well. Just should have been a bit more passive, playing a bit more to scale up. And that type of thing. So a lot of mistakes for me again, and that leads to us being in a really rough spot. We try to kill Vayne, but Vayne ends up getting out, I believe. So kind of a weird thing too. He was running no flash. He was running like cleanse and heal, which I don't know why, but we played against him the game before and he also did that on Vayne. I thought that was a really weird choice. I think he went cleanse and something else like exhaust that game, or it was something, but it was no ghost, no flash on Vayne, and I was like, what? That's very odd. But because he's Jackie, he still did really well. So that was strange. But yeah, so now at this point, our main goal is just to try to make plays on other parts of the map, try to scale up, and then hope the enemy eventually ends. We're really playing around gold bounties, and we're playing around using the objectives as a distraction, because now we're down 6,000 gold. So I just want to force a fight on the same lane as where one of my teammates are, when the enemy jungle or the rest of the enemy team are not nearby to follow up. So for me, this is going to be kind of playing around Fiora. Like, I know my Fiora, is a good player, whereas I don't know my bot lane and they're getting stomped. So I'm assuming, right, my bot lane probably not good. Whereas I know that, again, I have a challenger Fiora, challenger Wukong, probably going to play around those people rather than play around my bot lane. And so we go for the mid push right away because obviously we want to get on the wave as fast as possible. That's an important thing too. It's just you really play around waves when you are behind. And the reason this matters so much is because when you're behind, you're going to be worth less gold. Because like say you die 2 or 3 times in a row, well then you're not going to be worth nearly as much gold. You're going to be worth 200, 100, whatever. And so then getting those waves is valuable as your life at that point. And so I just really value that wave. We end up then going and forcing again. You see how Xin Zhao's top side? And so I'm going for a gank on the bottom side. But it doesn't work out because, again, the enemy are so far ahead. Fiora just ends up dying because this Mordekaiser's ahead. And then I end up, not getting a good spot. And so even though we make the correct decision here, because we're so behind, it still doesn't work out very well. And so even sometimes when you do make the correct decision or you do the right thing, this is just what's going to end up happening. We try to force the ult to see if we could kill him, but we could not. Spoiler alert. And so, yeah, we tried. Can't really do much. And at the end of the day, we're just getting some waves and mainly focusing on just scaling up. So again, like at this point, the real main goal is to get these gold bounties on all these outer turrets whenever we can, which is why I'm even going to force a little bit of damage onto the turret here. And then as we're forcing the turret, we're just going to let our Fiora come. We know Mordekaiser doesn't have ult, and so we're going to force it on him. And so you can see how, again, playing around these gold bounties and these turrets, and then playing around the opposite side of where the enemy jungle is early on, is how we're able to at least get some amount of advantage. And then we end up trying to kill the Mordekaiser. I believe we do end up killing him. So we get the shutdown on the Mordekaiser, we get the gold bounty on the turret, and we get multiple waves worth of gold. So this is kind of where a little bit of the comeback starts, where I start getting myself on a good gold pace, where I'm actually ahead of the victor now, despite that really bad early game. I stick around for a wave to get my item because I'm a little bit greedy, Sometimes you got to be greedy as well to carry these games, which is another thing that I do want to mention, right? I do think it's really important for you to take these riskier plays from behind. So you don't want to force really, really dumb fights, obviously. But if you see an angle to outplay someone and you see, again, some type of possible kill angle, or maybe you can greed a wave for to get your item, whatever, you can do that when you're behind because, you know, you're probably going to lose anyway, so you might as well force something. And then here, because we just forced bot side and the enemy, you know, didn't respond really quickly, we now know Xin Zhao is probably bot side for a little bit, so we could maybe force a top side play. Now, then we saw the Vayne go back towards top side, so we ended up not forcing it, but that was the idea initially. And then because it didn't work out, we just ended up going back bot side. But you can see, again, we're just trying to avoid the Xin Zhao. We're not trying to fight around him. We're trying to play away from him. And then because there is an objective up on the top side, we want to ideally contest the bottom side where we can potentially play around more turret bounties or other things like that, instead of forcing a fight on an objective where our team is behind and we would just lose the objective. And so then we end up getting that kill on the Mordekaiser again because we are forcing on the other side of the map. And then I get another kill into myself. And so I'm starting to get my gold up. I'm getting to a point where, you know, I can do some damage. We're on 2 items. We're going to force the turret as the enemy are going for the other objective, right? So whenever there's a like second dragon especially, you kind of use that as a distraction. You go to the other side of the map and you really force, right? So again, main points of coming back. Don't force too many fights early on. Wait to hit your item spikes. Force on the opposite side of wherever the enemy jungler is playing and play around these turret bounties like you see us doing here. So turrets are really important, waves are really important, and then avoiding enemy jungle, trying to make those odd man advantages wherever you can. Even if you really, you know, your team gets screwed on one side, like you kind of see here where my team ends up dying, it's totally fine for us because we get the waves, we get the gold bounties, and we get that gold onto ourselves to possibly carry. And so again, I'm actually on a pretty good pacing gold-wise. And then if the enemy ever do overextend here, then you end up getting one shutdown and boom, like you're right back in the game. And again, keep in mind, this is a multiple time rank 1 Vayne who's overextending. So if you think that, you know, your opponents aren't going to overextend when they have a lead, just keep in mind, literally the best to one of the best players on our entire server doing this. We all make mistakes. The enemy are going to make mistakes, and then you take advantage of those mistakes after you do these other things to get yourself decent amounts of gold, and you're going to be chilling even if the early game goes poor. And then we're going to really hard force this Baron now because the enemy are dead on a timer where Baron's spawning. And so now this is where the comeback's really starting. We're only down 2k gold now. I just got a bunch of shutdowns. I'm about to hit death cap. And then we're able to force the Baron because the enemy died, you know, right as Baron was spawning. I end up messing my dash up, which almost screwed us over. But we do end up barely getting it. I think I actually get the Varus gets it, right? And so we barely get that objective, almost really, really bad. And then they end up forcing and dying here. And so that's kind of where that comeback came from then, is we got that gold onto ourselves, hit those certain item spikes, and boom, all of a sudden, you know, we're in a really good spot gold-wise. And as a team, we got the Baron. We're kind of fully scaling up and everything's looking really good. But Mordekaiser did triple our team on the other side. I did not expect that triple kill to happen from the Mordekaiser. And so the game is by no means over. I think we're about even gold, and the enemy scale really well still. So the main thing for us initially is force this turret because Mordekaiser has no ultimate, and then probably force a top turret. So again, playing around those turrets, that's how you're going to really accelerate your gold. Whereas a lot of people, they get some kills or whatever, and then they start just forcing for more kills and more fights and overextending. But when we get these leads, we're forcing, you know, trying to get gold. I try to take their jungle camp, though I do. In hindsight, you know, I should have gone straight for the turret, but we're just always trying to get gold somewhere, right? Like we're trying to get gold, trying to just catch up in whatever way we can. And then now at this point, we're in a pretty good spot. I'm going to get my stasis. I'm going to hit my 3-item spike. And then we're going to want to force that topside turret because that's the easiest turret to take. So once you do have your Baron, if you do come back, you know, you get the Baron, whatever, you want to make sure you're forcing the outer turrets that are the easiest to take. So here we're going to force topside initially, and then we can go to another part of the map after if we need. Just taking a sip of water, so was being silent for a second. But we are able to get this turret now as well. Start forcing that comeback again. Or well, not a comeback at this point. At this point, we're actually in the lead, right? And now we're just making sure to be patient with how we push everything. Not overforce too hard, but if we see an angle or to blow a flash like we did there, we'll obviously, you know, take that. And then now that we, you know, they clear the top wave, we're just going to rotate ideally towards the mid lane. I guess I see an angle to try to kill them, but we don't end up getting that because he gets a nice knockback. So we just go towards the mid wave to get those lanes pushing. Because another really important thing with the Baron in general is to not desync your waves. So you want your waves to be hitting turrets at the same time. So you want your bot wave to be hitting the turret at the same time the mid wave and the top wave are, so that the enemy have to choose what to respond to, and they're spread really thin. Whereas if, say, you push a mid wave and then that mid wave gets killed, and then you go to the bot wave gets killed, it's very easy for the enemy to defend. And so the way we did that, we were able to end up getting that bottom lane inhib, and even though one person died, we're totally happy with that at the end of the day. And so now I'm very strong. I'm up to the same amount of gold now as their Fed Vayne, who had a really good early game. and then we're able to possibly blow up that vein. So that's another thing, is kind of target priority. When you are behind, it's really important to understand your job in fights. So oftentimes, if say you are the burst assassin and the enemy who's really fed is like an AD carry, then you're going to want to target them, right? Or you're going to want to target their support. You know, you target whoever is going to allow you to end up killing that person overall. Whereas say you're a tank, well then maybe you're going to need to protect your carry, whoever's doing the best. Like in this game, for example, you know, even when we were kind of behind, my gold was pretty decent. So if, you know, say I have a tank support, they're going to want to really pay attention to protecting me or making plays for me, because I was, you know, in a decent spot. So that type of thing. Or where my Fiora in this game understood that his job to come back is to be on the side lane very, very frequently. And then here now, we end up forcing a fight. We find a nice little flank angle here as the enemy are trying to force the soul. We get the stun on one, and then we end up stasising, so our ult is going to come back, and then we hit the Vayne with the ult. We get a bunch of free damage. We kill the Xin Zhao, and then we go over to flash onto Vayne, get the Vayne, and then the game ends there. So nice little game there where we did come back again. To reiterate, again, I've done it a few times, but reiterate the main points of coming back. Got to make sure that you don't overforce fights when you're behind early. Got to make sure you're playing on the opposite side of the map, as the enemy is trying to stack as many numbers on one part of the map as possible, and really trading for those turrets and those gold bounties. Playing around waves rather than playing around your life as much. Your life's not super valuable. And then playing around those key objective timers, using them as distractions to get things on other parts of the map. Understanding your win condition, you know, whoever maybe is strong, maybe you have one person who's strong in your team, really hard playing around them, not playing around your weaker points. Like in this game, we didn't play around our Varus Sona, we play around our Fiora instead. All those types of things can definitely help you come back, and you can see that ended up getting us 1 game from Challenger. This was the last game I played last night, so we're currently 1 game from Challenger, but the goal is obviously to get towards Challenger and eventually Sovereign, and then maybe start up the Legendary ranked again after that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.